Before Spider-Man's introduction into the MCU in Civil War, Sony had originally planned to have their own cinematic universe based around the hero. This would have featured at least 2 more amazing Spider-Man films, as well as spin-off movies about the Sinister Six, Venom, Black Cat, Carnage, and even a prequel about Aunt May's time as a spy during the Cold War. Because when we all first read about Spider-Man, we all thought, I wonder about Aunt May's time as an undercover spy.
Yes.
However, upon the underperformance of The Amazing Spider-Man 2 and Andrew Garfield leaving the series over creative differences, Sony eventually agreed to reboot the franchise again, sharing the rights to the character with Disney and Marvel. So it was now possible for Spider-Man solo movies to be featured within the MCU.
Finally.
Drew Goddard, who had previously been attached to direct the aforementioned Sinister Six film, was offered the director's chair on this one, but he declined, admitting he wouldn't have had any idea which direction to take the character. Other directors considered including Jonathan Levine, Theodore Melfi, and Jared Hess, before finally selecting John Watts. Watts said that the film was primarily influenced by high school coming-of-age movies such as The Breakfast Club, Ferris Bueller's Day Off, Almost Famous, and Fast Times at Ridgemont High, and that the stakes would be much more personal than most other Marvel movies. Stakes don't need to be the end of the world. What we wanted was a movie where the stakes could be as high as this bad person is going to do this bad thing, and a lot of people could die. Or you don't get home in time and your aunt is going to figure this out and your whole life is going to change. A Marvel movie that isn't about a bad guy with a big weapon about to end the world? Is that allowed?
It's time we change too.
To prepare for the role, Tom Holland went undercover at a local high school in the Bronx, posing as a high school student and using his acting coach's name as an alias. In fact, he was so convincing that many of the pupils and teachers not only didn't realize that he wasn't a student, but also that he wasn't American.
You're still on that?
One of the biggest decisions that had to be made was which villain Spider-Man would face in this film. The writers debated on including the Green Goblin, with Matthew McConaughey of all people wanting the role, and even Alfred Molina expressed interest in returning as Doc Ock. Yeah, like that would ever happen.
Hey, come on, I'm joking.
However, Watts was keen to include villains which hadn't been seen in previous Spider-Man movies, eventually settling on the Vulture. Michael Keaton was actually offered the role from the get-go, but he was forced to turn it down due to scheduling conflicts, at which point John Leguizamo was offered the part. However, Keaton's schedule unexpectedly became free and the role was given back to him instead, much to Leguizamo's annoyance. Despite being offered another part in the film, Leguizamo angrily turned it down, as he felt he was used as bait to get Keaton to retake the role. Yeah, that's such a DC thing to do. He even considered suing the production for wasting his time, though he never went through with this. Even Mark Hamill offered to take on the part if Michael Keaton changed his mind.
I apologize, Mr. Toombs, but all salvage operations are now under our jurisdiction.
I'm Batman.
Once he had the role in the bag, Keaton openly admitted that he didn't read any comics to prepare, and the only research he did was speaking to his friend's 2 daughters about the character, who were avid Spider-Man fans. Several major changes were also made to many of the more famous Spider-Man characters. The first of these came with Flash Thompson, who Watts wanted to depict as a smug, rich kid who would be more of a mental bully rather than the physical one seen in previous iterations, though actor Tony Revolori was met with death threats from fans for even taking on the part. Calm down guys, it's just a comic book film.
This is a huge deal for us.
And yeah, Flash really doesn't come across as a menacing bully in this one. Tom Holland could kick his ass with his hands tied. But the director does have a point, his sarcastic nature does work with what they were going for.
Flash, you're in for Peter.
Oof, I don't know. I gotta check my calendar first. I got a hot date with Black Widow coming up.
Even if he never actually looks like he could beat Peter up.
They're friends. Yeah, like Coach Wilson and Captain America are friends.
Don't make me challenge you to connect 4. I mean, he's also an academic and really intelligent, so he picks on Peter more out of jealousy when he gets more attention on girls rather than because he's a nerd. But his character wasn't the only change made from the comics. Ned, Peter's best friend, was originally just a random reporter at the Daily Bugle, but the movie's version was based on the comic character Gank Lee, who was also a nerdy Chinese schoolboy who was friends with Spider-Man and an avid Lego collector. Aunt May was also made much younger than in previous iterations, and Marisa Tomei was actually shocked to learn that her comic counterpart was much older, until her brother explained to her that Aunt May was not Peter's blood relative. This made her realise that Aunt May could be any adult age depending on how old she and Uncle Ben were when they got married.
That's awesome.
But one of the biggest changes introduced is that this was the first Spider-Man film not to include Uncle Ben in any way. Not even being mentioned in a throwaway line, there's nothing. He was included in early drafts, with Steve Steve Buscemi being rumoured as a contender for the role. However, the writers eventually omitted the character altogether when they decided to write a script where Peter had already been Spider-Man for some time, rather than another origin story. To be fair, this would have been the third time Uncle Ben got shot in 15 years. Give the poor guy a break.
Right, of course. Yeah, my bad, silly.
Following the omission of Uncle Ben, Nick Fury was considered to fill in the role of Peter's mentor, but it was later changed to Tony Stark, though some fans complained, feeling as though Tony was a poor substitute for the iconic Uncle Ben. Filming began in June 2016 and wrapped in October that year, and Spider-Man Homecoming was released on July the 7th, 2017. It was another monster hit, grossing $880 million worldwide, at the time the second most successful Spider-Man film after Spider-Man 3, and reviews were very positive, praising the cast's performances and the lighter tone, many calling it the best Spidey film since Spider-Man 2. I mean, maybe some of the scenes needed to be reshot considering this punch was clearly a miss. Credit to them though, they managed to up the Marvel opening screen and even added in the Spider-Man theme, which is a really nice touch. As much as I loved Andrew Garfield, Tom Holland is just a gem. He plays the character much younger here, and it is hilarious. He's just that annoying kid who's so excited to get to hang out with Tony Stark. He even vlogs his adventures, and the funny thing is, this is exactly what a new generation of superheroes would do. A 15-year-old Spider-Man in 2017 would definitely have a TikTok account, let's be honest. He spams Happy's text messages, and it's just so funny seeing a clingy teenage superhero desperate for attention. And the image of him awkwardly struggling to change into his costume is brilliant. And he does have some genuinely funny moments as the hero as well.
Hey, could you hold this for a second? Thanks. Whoa, you're the Avengers!
It is I, Thor, son of Odin.
What happened to your voice?
What do you mean, what happened to my voice?
I heard you by the bridge. I know what a girl sound like.
I'm not a girl, I'm a boy!
The movie is pretty damn funny, and unlike other installments in the franchise, it doesn't overdo it.
Would you like me to engage enhanced combat mode?
Enhanced combat mode? Yeah.
Activating instant kill.
No. It's really nice to have somebody to talk to. Hey, how long we been here anyways?
37 minutes.
But at least this one acknowledges that Peter is a creepy bastard.
Probably stop staring before he gets creepy though.
He ends up messing up several crimes and just gets ghosted by the Avengers when all he wants to do is join them. Nobody really wants Peter around, and you do feel really sorry for the guy. Tony is selling the Avengers Tower, and everyone seems to just not like him. They must have got him confused with Hawkeye. Ned learns that Peter is Spider-Man and is understandably incredibly excited, but there is absolutely no way nobody at school is hearing all of these conversations. Nobody believes that he's actually working with Tony Stark, and naturally Ned makes it worse by telling them all that he's best mates with Spider-Man. This leads to them being invited to a party so Spidey can come along, but of course shit goes down and he has to ditch.
Hey man, what's up? I'm on my way back.
Actually, I was calling to say maybe you shouldn't come. Listen to this.
When I say penis, you say fucker. Penis! Penis!
I mean, Peter could still go back as Spider-Man. Just go in and say, hey guys, yeah, I'm buds with Peter, flash your rebel end. He wouldn't get picked on anymore. The plan can still work, guys. There's just something so funny about a superhero whining that he's being treated like a child.
But you are a kid.
Yeah, a kid who can stop a bus with his bare hands.
It's hilarious that he tries desperately to keep his identity a secret so he doesn't get in trouble. At the end of the movie, Aunt May actually does find out that he's Spider-Man. This was originally cut out of the script, but Marisa Tomei insisted it be included as she didn't want her character in future films to always be completely oblivious to Peter's identity. And the director finally agreed. And don't you worry, if you forgot that Aunt May is hot, the movie will remind you.
Hey May, how you doing? What are you wearing? Something skimpy, I hope.
La tía de una italiana que está buenísima.
Sticky rice pudding.
Well, we didn't order that.
It's on the house.
Oh.
Even if she hates Tony.
Not a fan of that Tony Stark.
Give him some time, he'll grow on you. Zendaya is in this film and kind of maybe a little possibly plays Mary Jane.
My friends call me MJ.
But she is hilarious in this.
Really? Right before nationals?
He already quit marching band and robotics lab. I'm not obsessed with him, I'm just very observant.
Why are you here? You don't even have detention.
Oh, I know, I just like coming here to sketch people in crisis.
Naturally, Keaton has some henchmen, one of which is called Aaron Davis, played by Donald Glover. In the comics, he is also a costume vigilante known as the Prowler, which sounds like he'd been mates with Jimmy Savile, but he was also the uncle of another Spider-Man named Miles Morales. They brought this character into the film to try to introduce both Miles and the Prowler into the MCU, but apparently shit all over the Shocker.
Calling yourself the Shocker. I'm the Shocker. I shock people. What is this, pro wrestling?
Put some respect to his name. But it's good to know that ridiculously impossible technology has now shifted over to Spider-Man as well. Fuck it, they got Thor, they can do whatever the hell they want. But in other news, the movie based on a superhuman spider is a lot more realistic than the other versions, considering he can't just swing anywhere he wants. At several points he's unable to do this and he has to rely on transport. And he can't just scale a building with ease. He struggles for a while and becomes exhausted. I mean, he's Spider-Man, but he is only 15. He gets an upgrade on the suit and we get some humour as he's trying to figure out its new powers, but basically it's Iron Man's suit. A lady lives inside named Karen, yeah, and Peter kind of forms a weird sweet relationship with her. What is he, Plankton?
Should I tell Liz that I'm Spider-Man?
Who is Liz?
To be fair, he finally has someone to talk to and open up to, so it is bizarrely really sweet. Some fans actually complained about Spider-Man's suit being too high-tech, and the funny thing is, all the gadgets featured in the film were used by the character at some point in the comics, but not all together, and this is an issue I have. Firstly, it doesn't feel like a Spider-Man film. It feels like an Iron Man film. The whole film is Peter trying to gain acceptance from Iron Man. He's then given an Iron Man suit. The whole fun about Spider-Man is him struggling, but when he's got this high-tech suit, it's less of a struggle. Even the villain is an enemy of Iron Man's.
Yeah.
But I do love how he puts on an exaggerated Brooklyn accent to hide his identity.
So, is everyone okay?
Tiny details like that really do make Tom Holland amazing. There's this bomb glowy thing that manages to get through security undetected somehow. No wonder there's so many attacks in the States. But it made no sense in The Amazing Spider-Man, and it makes no sense here. Why do the police want to shoot Spidey? I mean, considering they're already aware he's helped the damn Avengers at this point, why is he a vigilante? They don't know he's trying to stop the lift from collapsing, but they're arresting him for what? Climbing a wall? Very bizarre law. He manages to get respect from the public and from Tony for this, but then chases down the Vulture and fucks things up. But this scene is insane. A ferry gets split in half, and it's such an exciting and intense sequence, even if it completely rips off Spider-Man 2. I'm the king of the world! But this pisses off Tony, who decides he's not ready and takes back the suit. It's actually such an emotional moment, as Peter believes he's nothing if he's not Spider-Man, and Tony's motivation is great.
Do you know that I was the only one who believed in you? Everyone else said I was crazy to recruit a 14-year-old kid.
You could say this is the same as previous films, as Peter has to give up being Spider-Man again, but this time it's actually very different because it's not his choice. He's forced to give it up. But the movie definitely knows Tom Holland very well.
You're terrible at keeping secrets.
If I'm honest with you, I actually know nothing about this movie. I'm not allowed to read the scripts because I'm so bad at keeping secrets for this exact reason.
Peter ends up liking a girl called Liz, and guess what? Her father just so happens to be the Vulture, because every single villain in this damn franchise has to have some kind of connection to Peter Parker as well as Spider-Man. Best friend, best friend's dad, mentor, uncle's killer, colleague, teacher. He works with his girlfriend, that counts. The thing is, if you notice, the Vulture never actually attempts to harm any innocent people in this film, despite being the villain. The only times he causes damage is when Spider-Man tries to meddle in his schemes, which plays into Peter's character arc. It's an interesting change to not just have someone trying to destroy the world. His plan is to steal weapons from the Avenger and sell them to support his family.
But I understand that selling weapons to criminals is wrong.
How do you think your buddy Stark paid for that tower? Or any of his little toys?
It's a great performance by Keaton and a welcome change. Even if he has short-term memory loss. I mean, he clearly knows Peter's name.
He must be Peter.
But then gets it wrong 10 seconds later.
Freddy?
Peter.
Ha 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 ha. He even figures out that Peter is Spider-Man because apparently he's the only one around with half a brain cell and gives him a pass because he saved his daughter's life. I love the change in Peter's character. Remember that although he has superpowers, he is just a kid. He's far too scared and nervous to even enjoy his day. It's definitely the most human and believable we've actually seen Peter Parker. And unlike the other ones, he doesn't even end up getting the girl. He knows what he has to do and ditches her. And this poor girl gets abandoned the entire film, then her dad gets arrested, and then she has to move out of state. I hope he sent her some flowers. He even struggles to drive because he's just a kid. It's awesome seeing Spidey struggle by having to fight and prove that he doesn't need the suit. It's such a cool scene, and it's from one of the most iconic Spider-Man moments in the comics in The Amazing Spider-Man 33.
Actually, it turns out it was the perfect sort of tough love moment that you needed, right? To urge you on, right? Wouldn't you think?
It leads to such an exciting action scene outside a damn plane in the sky. Must resist plane crashing in New York joke. Must resist plane crashing in New York joke. And after all of this, Peter realizes he doesn't need the Avengers after all and turns them down before they remind us that, hey, Pepper is alive! And doesn't have her superpowers that she got at the end of Iron Man 3 anymore for some reason. Funnily enough, Gwyneth Paltrow actually shot this scene thinking it was for an Avengers movie. It wasn't until Jon Favreau informed her otherwise that she learned she had actually been in a Spider-Man film. And then they get together. Again. Alright. Before quite possibly one of my favourite, funniest, and smartest post-credit scenes thus far.
Sometimes patience is the key to victory. Sometimes it leads to very little, and it seems like it's not worth it. And you wonder why you waited so long for something so disappointing.
Wow, 5 Spider-Man films and only 1 has been bad. Let's go! Homecoming is definitely a breath of fresh air. Don't get me wrong, I love 1 and 2 and 1, 2, but after 5 films, it was getting a bit same oldie. This is clearly a fresh take. No Uncle Ben, no high school students looking 50, no evil villain with little motivation. It's a story of Spider-Man looking for acceptance as both Spider-Man and Peter Parker. I'm not a massive fan of the inclusion so much of Tony Stark, but it does help with their relationship and it will benefit the franchise later. Homecoming in my mind is a damn good reboot, and I can't wait for them to reboot it again in a couple more years. Can you hear my voice straining? Can you hear my voice? It's slowly going.